Hey everyone, welcome to Admit One with gmoney. Today we have the head of innovation at Publicist Media. Back in 2021, he was a media strategist by day, working with AMEX, Disney, and PlayStation. At night, he was a degen, working with CrytoNovo to bring NFTs to life. His innovation experience mixed with his passion for the digital world drove him to lead the strategic integration of emerging technologies and platforms, bridging brand experiences to the metaverse. Most recently, he has been a part of ushering Samsung into the Web3 space and creating a unique path for Pizza Hut to embrace utility in a unique way. He's here to discuss all that, plus the current trends in the market and where NFTs go from here. Please welcome Keith Soljacich. Did I
What's
say
going
it
on,
right?
G? Yeah, you got
How
it.
are you? Dude, I
Good,
want to
man.
start off. I want to start off with how we met, right? Because this is the first time that you're telling me your name because I know you as Best RKX. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I just know it's Best ARX or whatever it is on Discord and Twitter, and that's how I always find you. So yeah, so we met initially through CrytoNovo, and you guys were the guys that designed my AR filter.
That's right. Yeah, we were really early to the point where we just thought it would be a really cool thing to do, to have these AR filters. And going back, G, boy, man, that feels like a million crypto, million
Yeah,
crypto years ago.
exactly.
But we're solving problems with these,
Yeah,
right?
no, I
And
I mean you were. Even to this day, I
yeah,
get so many people asking me, "Oh, who made that for you?" And I always send them your way to see, if you have the time or the desire to do them at this point. But because I'm sure you're so busy with stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's been incredible, and you have always been super supportive. Anytime like I've run into an issue where I'm like, "Oh, like this isn't working," or I know initially it was a blank background, right? So you wouldn't be able to see like the room that I was in, and like honestly, like having this like just be an AR in the room is pretty incredible. I love it. You guys did an incredible job with it.
yeah, and I mean, thinking back to when Nova and I were getting started in this space, and even back to the Larva Labs Discord, right, and hanging out in there with all the OG crypto punks, and everybody had their sort of avatar and their identity, and we had you and D's and Tony Herrera and Crypto Novo and uh, 4156, everybody hanging out back then. It was just a static experience, and that was really cool, and we were starting to figure out digital identity just a little bit, and of course spending a ton of time in audio channels too, right? Clubhouse. I mean, how much time do we spend in Clubhouse back then? And when Nova and I were getting started, and we just NFTs and the artists that were stepping into this space is a visual medium, right? And Clubhouse just had that missing element of the artist's visual representations of what they were creating. And so we knew we wanted to go to Twitch. We knew we wanted to be visual. We knew we wanted to bring it live as well, because these were moments happening that we wanted to capture. And my buddy Novo was a school teacher, and he'll tell you that story all day long. He did not want to be on camera, and didn't want to be out, and so the AR filter was sort of born out of that need. We wanted to be in a visual medium. We wanted to represent ourselves with our NFTs and our avatars, and the Snapchat lenses just made that happen.
Yeah. So how did you and Novo meet?
I met Novo in first grade when we were in the same classroom.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that. I thought you guys met in crypto. That's crazy. So then let's go through your origin story because like how did you get into crypto? How did you get into NFTs? You're over at Publicist. Like what were you doing over there before? And we can talk about what you're doing over there now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like a lot of people, started looking into crypto a few years ago, investing a little bit, but mostly just trying to kind of understand the space because it was a combination of, finance and currency and technology. So, of course, in my role at the time was at an agency called Digitas, also within Publicist Group. We were looking at everything innovative, right? And crypto was in that category. So I like to get my hands dirty with tech. I got to get in, I got to try it, and have to experience it to really understand it. And so started in crypto, and then looking, really fast forward to early 2020, and like I said, my best friend in the world says, who was doing real well in the crypto space investing, was also a major collector of comic books and baseball cards and basketball cards, and he's a collector, and he said, hey, I'm gonna start collecting these digital things called CryptoPunks, and you should look at it. You're into tech. And I was like, well, I'll try. And it was really in early 2020, it was not easy to get a CryptoPunk. You had to go through multiple steps, jump through multiple hoops. It wasn't like just logging on to the Larva Labs site and connecting your MetaMask wallet. It was a lot harder than that. And so that barrier to entry prevented me, stupidly now, from getting a CryptoPunk back when he bought it, which was like ETH equivalent of $250 at the time. He kept acquiring CryptoPunks, kept telling me to step into the space, and until eventually we kind of married the punks that we own with the purple hair punk, Clown Eyes, that I just absolutely fell in love with, a lot like you did with the Beanie Ape, right? And so we started, attaching our identities to our CryptoPunks, just like a lot of people were. And so, and then, for me, and a lot more at that point, a lot more accessible was NBA Top Shot to get in and really test the waters with, NFTs and collecting and joining a community and participating in the drops, right? The drops for Top Shot were those were big moments towards the end of 2020. So that's where I started really navigating the space, getting to understand what it was all about. And at that point, spending a ton of time with you and all the folks, all the OGs in the Larva Labs Discord, that's when the light bulb went on for me. Really January 2021, right after CES, where we spend a ton of time looking at emerging tech, right? Like what's new, what's coming, what's happening. And, I was the only one kind of raising my hand in that room to say, you guys got to look at NFTs. NFTs are going to change how brands interact with us, how they engage, how they reward us, CRM. And I wrote an article for a publication called Little Black Book in February 2021 about NFTs and the future of, the implications for brands and those kinds of things. And so started educating the agency and anyone who would listen. I started yelling about NFTs to anybody who would listen.
No, that's awesome. I see so many similarities in both of our paths, because I did the same, just, not necessarily within the advertising space, because I don't come from the advertising space. So yeah, it just, to me, it's like, I remember, oh man, I remember the week after I bought my CryptoPunk, I contacted the only publicist that I knew, who I had met like 2 weeks before. And I was like, hey, like, can you be my publicist? Because I think this would be a really big deal and a big story, because, I spent this much money, and I spent an hour or an hour and a half explaining everything about NFTs and how I thought it was the future, and to her and her partner. And they basically were just like, yeah, like, we'll get back to you. And then, like, I never heard from them again. And I was like, oh man. I was like, it's just funny, because I think, especially like a year and a half ago, um, people just, they weren't seeing it just yet. And even now, I think people still have a little trouble seeing it, depending on, how skeptical they are of the tech and all of that, right? I want to touch a little bit before we really start going down that rabbit hole is, when you came into the space, right? Like, I feel like you did a really good job at, like, taking your skills from Web 2, or, the traditional space, and bringing them to Web 3. What do you think, what were some of your strengths or interests, that you pulled to, like, find your place in the NFT ecosystem really early on?
Yeah. So, back then everybody was contributing, right, in any way they could. And they're like, if we're sharing information, we're sharing equitably, right? You understand this. You know how to buy a CryptoPunk, right, back then, and you want to share that with me. Well, then I want to exchange that with you and give you some of the knowledge I have in the space. And if you asked me back, before I got into NFTs, what I'd be doing for the rest of my career, I would have told you I'd be working in the virtual reality, augmented reality space. I'd spent the last, at that point, 5 years working in XR, building virtual reality experiences for brands, moving into the augmented reality space, which was getting really, really exciting and moving, at a more accelerated pace from consumer adoption standpoint than VR at that stage. And another thing early on, I was like, look, this is going to be the future of how we all socialize, interact, in my case, engage with brands, right? That brand experience is going to evolve into an immersive experience. We're going to start to lean into spatial computing. One thing, we all know, and actually I heard 6529 talking about this on your podcast just recently, is, technology is inevitable, man. It's like Thanos, right? Like it keeps moving ahead. It never stops. So the things that sound weird to you today are going to be totally commonplace. And so, again, flashing back to early 2021, my experience was totally in the spatial computing side and immersive content. And so, the word metaverse wasn't really, tossed around. And I started talking about, hey, the metaverse is going to be the place where you'll bring your NFTs to life. We'll bring our avatars to life. Where all of this incredible art that people were creating back then is going to come to life. And so, sharing with folks like you and Justin Aversano and Tony Herrera and those folks, and saying, hey, looking into these virtual experiences is where you can bring this to life. So that's sort of like the stepped out plan into then ultimately how we started creating Snapchat lenses. And the technology was evolving, and Snapchat was updating their features to enable facial tracking and eye tracking and gesture tracking and all those awesome capabilities they have now. And so just like it was that convergence of the technology evolving to the point where we could utilize it in an easier way, and then the rise of digital identity and NFTs powering that just all hit like right at the same time, early 21.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think one question I have, since you come from that space, from that background, what do you think, I guess, I mean, I guess right now you would say that AR probably has more adoption than VR, right? In the sense that I'm sitting here with an AR filter right now talking to you. But what do you think, I guess, what I think from like a consumer application standpoint, where like, where we're standing with glasses on with an AR, world in front of us, right? Like while we're talking to each other in the real world versus putting on a headset and being in an immersive world. Which one do you think probably catches as a consumer trend earlier than the other? Do you think
Well,
it's VR or
is
AR?
C, all of the above, an option? Yeah, I mean, early stage technology is going to be fractured. It's going to be bifurcated. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging, right? Because there's always miniaturization going on. There's always, Moore's law comes into play. You've got all of these factors around emerging technology that always make it really difficult for a long time, right? But it tends to mature into consumer adoption right around the same time that the technology evolves to the point where the friction goes away, right? And so my point here being is that in the near future, I mean, we're looking at the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think we'll be calling it virtual reality. I don't think we'll be calling it augmented reality. I don't think you're going to decide whether you want to have an augmented reality experience, or you're going to decide if you want to have a virtual reality experience. You're going to be experiencing the internet, okay, and you're going to be connecting digitally, whether you're friends, family, colleagues, etc. And that experience is going to adapt to contextual signals around you to the experience you've decided to join, right? And so whether that's a VR experience, you're totally closed off, right? Nothing's let in from the real world and you're in a completely immersive environment, or you're in an augmented reality experience where you're taking in your surroundings around you and mapping the space and using that as contextual cues for how you can build out that virtual world. These things are going to happen on the same device, through the same lenses, through the same GPU, and all the same processing power. And it's just going to be a matter of where you are at that given time and what content you're trying to consume. So, but I really do see them, to the point between now and when the technology matures, a little bit like the end of a horse race, right? Where they're both moving ahead of each other a little bit, because certainly VR headsets adoption is growing. Augmented reality, from a device standpoint, or from your your phone in your pocket, that's already kind of matured, and we'll start to see now these consumer level AR smart glasses pop up, right? So they're going to be a little bit of a two horse race for a little bit.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. I always have these conversations with people. I'm always curious as to what they think, because I, as a consumer, I would like either of them, and I don't necessarily care which wins over the other. But I'm super curious as to people that understand the tech, that are closer to the tech stack than I am, what their thoughts are. So it's always interesting to hear that perspective. But I want to go back to 2021 for a second. So you write this article in that publication, and I'm sure you're talking to people within your organization about the importance of NFTs. What was their initial reaction? Like, what was the initial reaction you got internally to the stuff you were chatting about?
Yeah, I mean, a ton of credit to the advertising world in general, right? Like this is a brave and bold industry that's not afraid of the future, that's not afraid of emerging technology, and certainly you're gonna have people that give you a little like, what? That's weird, but people were really open and really open to learn about something that they didn't understand, and the analogy that we've used, and it's still so good, so we haven't stopped using it, is this idea of in-game items, right? Purely digital items purchased in game, in world, in Fortnite, right? This is kind of part of your origin story too, leading to that aha moment. When you use that analogy to communicate, hey, think of in-game items, but broken out of that walled garden and proliferated effectively across the internet. Imagine that. It was like a lot of light bulbs were going on as well. And they said, well, while I might not understand the how, I understand the why, right? And so, and uh, we were doing shared learnings and educations for as many people as we could back then, our clients and internal teams, to say, hey, this is something that could be a thing that you could look at. And the way we really approached it back then, and again, coming from the innovation side, was this is an emerging technology that if you're a brand, you can get out ahead of. You can be the first, one of the first to market, and you can forever really have that legacy. And there's brands that very much want to play in that space, and certainly you saw it firsthand, with the work you're doing with Adidas, right? They wanted to step in, they wanted to innovate, and they went out and found the right way to do that. So that was happening, even though it seems like brands are slow to move. The ears were open and they were listening back then.
Right. Yeah. And so, I know firsthand that brands move at a snail's pace compared to the pace of the crypto and NFTs in particular. I guess, who were the first brands that you guys actually did something official with, working on stuff, and helping them come into the NFT space?
Yeah. So, two stand out in particular. The first one that we really signed up and started working with was Autograph.io, Tom Brady's company, and we're working with that team, bringing our Web 2 experience at the time for experience strategy and experience design. So working with that team, like what creates an effective user experience, what creates an intuitive UI, and no one had really looked at this with a fine tooth comb for NFTs yet, right? And Autograph certainly their intention was to be a lot more accessible, right, to the everyday fan, the everyday sports fan, for sports collectibles and that kind of thing. So we really looked at how do you create a site, and working with the autograph team, how do you create a site and an experience that encourages that, but also doesn't, betray you from a user experience standpoint. I can't figure this out, right? If I can't figure it out right away, and NFTs are something I don't understand, then I'm bouncing right out of that experience. So we work with that team really closely. They went on to create a fantastic site, fantastic marketplace, an awesome experience that continues to evolve. So Autograph was really one of the first clients that we signed on. Now they wanted to get into NFTs very specifically, but the next one that started really bubbling up and was wanting to do something in a really unique way, and trusted us to say, you guys understand this place, help us reinvent what we're doing, was Macy's. And Macy's, it was like around mid 2021, excuse me, around mid 2021, wanted to take a look at their Thanksgiving Day parade, right? And this is iconic, right? It goes back 95 years at that point. People are familiar with the parade floats and the broadcast on television, but that was, an audience for an older generation, right, with Macy's. And they wanted to age down the brand. They wanted to reach a new audience. And so the question wasn't how about NFTs? The question was, what can we do, right, to reach that younger audience and resonate and really find an impactful moment at the Thanksgiving table, right? How do we inject the brand into that conversation and have that moment? And we thought NFTs and an NFT collection that they drop would be the most effective way to inject the conversation. Who doesn't have an uncle that they sat down with at the Thanksgiving table that was like, oh, I was into crypto and I bought NFTs and I'm going to tell my whole family about this and brag about all the money I made in crypto this year. And we knew that those conversations were going to be happening around the Thanksgiving table. And so we dropped 9,500 NFTs for free on Thanksgiving. It was basically a gift from the brand. And you could claim one of the generative art rendered NFTs from all the parade floats across the year. So we did like nearly a 10K collection, right? And the first time a brand had dropped a 10K collection. They were all claimed within an hour. We had 500 million earned media impressions, which is what we were going for, right? We want to inject into that conversation. And ultimately just, a gift of goodwill with Macy's and the fans out there, and giving back to the community.
Has Macy's done anything with that since then or no?
Yeah, they're gearing up for a lot more Web3 activity for sure. Yeah, I mean, they recognize they've got token holders out there who collected those NFTs, who want to be part of a community through Suite, and that's what we're looking to activate soon.
All right, cool. I mean, that sounds exciting. I know I remember when that dropped, people were talking about it. So I myself didn't collect any, but I remember people talking about it around Thanksgiving time. And I think that kind of leads into, I want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing and what you've done with Samsung and Pizza Hut. If you can, elaborate on the stuff you've helped them with there, and what kind of fun stuff they've done and might have in store for the NFT space.
Yeah, I think a lot of the brands looked at the work that you guys were doing on Adidas, right? And it was aspirational, right? It made such an impact on the space, and it really resonated back into a broader audience, right? Brought a lot of awareness of what was going on around NFTs and ultimately the metaverse worlds itself. And so that was a catalyst moment for a lot of brands. Opened their eyes and said, hey, Adidas is stepping into the space. They've partnered with native Web3 communities, of course, and acquired the Bored Ape, and everything they were doing started to chart that playbook of what a brand could be, in a Web3 space. And so we started to get a whole lot of interest from brands who are saying, what's happening here? Help us understand how we can engage authentically in the space, right? I don't no brand ever said I want to do something stunty, right? That just never came up, right? They wanted to make an impact and they wanted to feel authentic to the brand, but everyone also was like, please help us to find the right way in, right? And so the one that really stood out to us, and both from a demand standpoint from the community, right, the Web3 community at large, and the brand itself, and also the broader really universe. Who doesn't own a Samsung product, right? That's the question you got to ask yourself. You got a TV, you got a phone, you got something in that universe, and Samsung, to their credit, recognized right away, like, our authentic place in this space is through innovation, right? We're innovating from the product standpoint. They got curved screens and folding phones and remotes that don't have batteries in them, and that's their product innovation. But they wanted to innovate in the consumer side as well, in the experiential side, because owning, it's like owning that product, right? It's got to feel special. And so we started looking at, how would they step into the metaverse, right? Into virtual worlds, metaverse experiences, right? Where can they effectively set up shop as a brand and invite people in to participate? And if you look across really all of the metaverse gateway platforms that are out there, the Robloxes of the world, the Fortnites of the world, the Sandbox and Decentraland, we started to think, yes, you could do something today, but like, what really sets you up to be there, not just for today in the short run, but what sets you up to win for the future as well? And so we knew that Decentraland and essentially decentralized metaverse worlds were going to be the place where Samsung could stake their claim. They could have ownership over their own experience, ownership over who came and visited, ownership over the data that people are willing to share with them, and ultimately be able to program that experience any way they see fit. And so Decentraland just hit on all those notes for us. And, really going back to, again, the community steps up to embrace, the brands that they're really excited for. And when we were looking at Decentraland, and we said, all right, how are we going to bring this to life? Because we want to go as big as we can and make an impact at CES 2022. And so we did two things. One, we tried to figure out what's the right way in, and we identified that 837, right? And if you're familiar with 837, this is their experiential center. It's in the Meatpacking District in New York. They host events there. They host product launches, and it's a really cool space, right? Covered in screens and tech and their products and their product ecosystem, and it does a lot for them locally, right there in New York. People who are hang out come there for workshops and all kind of cool stuff. But we thought, what if we could take the spirit of 837 in New York and then make that accessible in a virtual world in Decentraland to everybody globally, right? So that was the first thought. Hey, great, we can make this, we can just port this experience or the ethos of it into the metaverse. But then you got to step back and think, yeah, great, but classic line here, there's no bathrooms in the metaverse, right? You don't want to just create everything from like the Bolt and Beam level and port that as a digital twin into the metaverse, for a consumer experience. It's got to be fun. It's got to be, anything's possible in this world. It can be anything we want. So we stayed true to 837, to the building on the outside, so it looks like it, at least the metaverse equivalent of it. But on the inside, it's nothing like that place. It's completely fantastical, and it's really a representation of the brand. And that was a huge driver for the experience, right? If we can do anything, what will we actually want to do? And how would we bring the brand to life? It is still up in Decentraland. Yeah, absolutely. So we launched at CES, and I think one of the things that we did early on that's really carried into all the experiences we've done since then was everything you do in 837X. If you go on a quest and you learn about something about Samsung, or you learn about some of the cool products they have, and you complete that quest and you get a badge in world. This is like an in-game achievement, right? We're logging all of those and minting them as NFTs and airdropping them to you. So everything you're doing gets kind of logged and distributed, and then you've got effectively a POAP type record of all the activity you've done in this space. And now we're starting to utilize those NFTs we've given out to create token gated experiences for people. And so, yeah, we went on to do the Galaxy S22 launch in the metaverse. We did the You Make It challenge, which has got to be my favorite because, that one, you went through our metaverse world. And as you went through and the creative decisions you made along the way, we logged all of those, and then at the end we created some piece of generative art for you and airdropped that to you based on all the decisions you made. All that went into an machine learning algorithm and spit out an NFT. So I absolutely love that activation. But yeah, I mean, we're experimenting in that space and we're pushing innovation, and we're really just looking to see how NFTs and virtual worlds can drive that experience for the consumers.
Right. No, that's really cool. So I guess a question I have, especially with the pullback that the crypto market has experienced in the last few months, especially in the last few weeks, um, how has the brand appetites changed, if at all, over the course of the last month with the decline in crypto and the NFT space in general?
Yeah, there's awareness. I think that's the first place I'd start, right? The brands are watching the space. Certainly, we've been telling them you should be watching this space. You should be paying attention to what's going on because you don't really know what's going to happen week to week, right? So you gotta keep your eyes on it. And with the crypto pullback and really like all of these, boy, inflection point after inflection point after inflection point in the crypto space, and what it's doing to the price of crypto across the board, and in turn our four places on our NFTs and all those kinds of things, that that resonates from sort of like an experience standpoint. Like, are people turning away and they're asking those questions? They're really asking us what does this mean for us? Should we continue with our NFT program? Should we pull back? Should we look at the metaverse? Help us out. And what we're saying is, look, if you are going to look at a window of time that's like this big, my fingers are very close together for podcast listeners. If you're looking at a window of time that's that big, zoom out and look at the long term in the space, right? It's still very much an upward trend over time. And so if you're looking at a pullback, right, and that's impacting what you're going to do at a brand, as a brand, then you were really never in this for the long haul anyway. You weren't in it to sort of set yourself up for 2023 and 2024 and 2025 from an NFT standpoint, from a token holder standpoint, and ultimately from a metaverse standpoint. If this scares you now, you weren't, just like us, you weren't really in it for that long haul. So that's a long way of saying it's the best time to build. You should be in there. The pressure's low. The awareness is still high as ever. And, it's always been my belief that brands and them actually selling NFTs is a rare occasion, should be a rare occasion, right? And that should be some IP that you really want to own, that has a demand, crypto, up, down, left, or right. Otherwise, for brands utilizing NFTs in more of a CRM, customer relationship management standpoint, that's where you're really going to get that's where the power of NFTs really shines through. And boy, that doesn't really matter if crypto's up, down, left, or right.
Right. And so let's unpack that for a second, right? Because you said, well, one, if I'm reading this right, it seems like just because there's been a pullback in the space, it's not like brands are not interested anymore. Brands, yeah, I'm sure there are some people that are like, oh yeah, it was a bubble, like, F that, like move on. But I think the people that are really taking a look at the space and really interested in it, now is the time to really really delve in and put the boots on the ground and learn as much as possible, if I understand that right.
Yeah, I think you got that spot on. And really, I'd argue that we're probably coming out of the end of what you may call like phase zero with brand NFTs, right? This was everybody was experimenting. No brands who'd launched an NFT had something, a basis to go off on that they could learn from and that they could build on top of. So everyone says, hey, we're gonna be led by insights. We're going to listen to our customers, and we're going to drop something that we think they want. That was phase zero, right? And so I think we're coming out of phase zero, which means the pressure's off from a brand standpoint, right? You sort of missed that earliest window, right? That window where as a brand you're going to be forever tied to one of the first brand launches that came. You're going to have that legacy. Now you're in that next phase where the awareness is going to widen out a little bit. So what you're doing probably doesn't have the same major impact from like an awareness standpoint, but was that the purpose all along, right? Was that what you were going for? And if it was, again, you may be in this for the wrong reasons as a brand. So I think the pressure's off, right, for brands launching now. You just go to your super fans, go to your best consumers, and try to build that experience with them.
So let's talk about what you said. I want to unpack the not selling NFTs. So let's talk about that, because it sounds like you're talking about free minting. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, and you know, I guess the CRM side as well, right? Do you, yeah, how, like, I also believe that NFTs are going to be very, very popular and very useful as CRM, but how can a brand like harness that data, right? Because I think right now it's very archaic. You have to know how to program. You have to, there's no like dashboard the way there is on social media. So can we talk about both those things?
Yeah. Um, Look, I think the first place to start is, if you're gonna drop an NFT collection, or drop a token, whatever you're gonna do, and you as a brand, you're saying who owns my NFT, right? And knowing that is really important, right? Just getting 10,000 NFTs out there for a brand, if you don't know who owns it, actually gives you very little value as a brand, right? What do I actually know about my customers? What have they opted in to tell me and offer me back? So, having that sort of anonymous drop, you don't learn a whole lot from that. But if you do end up selling those NFTs, right? And let's say you sell those NFTs and you know who they are, right? And who do you expect them to be though, right? Because the game we were playing in 2021 and up till now was, hey, I'm looking at this as an investment, personally, me as a consumer, right? I'm a fan of that brand, but I also think line's going to go up on this thing. And so for the most part, I'm buying that brand NFT. Yeah, they're offering some utility, but also, hey, over time, my investment is going to grow. And I think there's a lot of challenges in that math, right? So did those people who came in at the beginning, if it didn't go up, did they sell? Did they exit out? Now do you still know who those people are that own your NFTs? So you start to get into this weird place of like, who's in your community, who's speculators, who's true fans of the brand, and you lose a little sight over what you were trying to do in the first place, which is build a relationship with your customer, right? And so the brands that I've seen that have dropped, done free mints or claiming or airdrops or whatever it is, you, at me as the consumer, I'm going to have to earn that in some way, right? And Samsung, I came to your metaverse world, I learned about your, sustainability efforts, and it earned me an NFT. And great, like I'll file that away in my collection, and when I got utility against that NFT, I've got it and I have it. So that idea that you can utilize NFTs as a brand to drive access and utility is the point we've been hammering home for over a year now, right? Is you should think about it in this way. Think about the people who claim your NFT should be fans of the brand, want to own a piece of it, but also participate, right? I want to be in this community because I think I might be able to have a role in that community or participate in the community. And to me, that's a lot more powerful for a brand. And go back to the 1,000 fans, right? You need 1,000 fans or whatever. You need that much smaller universe. This is sort of the paradigm shift that I think NFTs can drive for brands is you don't have to reach 10 million people to move 10,000, right? You can reach 10,000 people to move those 10,000. And I think that's a big difference between, what a lot of what brands have been doing over the course of the last decade is, this mass wide awareness to hit those particular consumers who are, going to.
Right. Yeah, no. I definitely, that definitely vibes with me. That is kind of the reason why I did my free mint, right? The people that were on the allow list were people that didn't give me any money. They were people that gave me time and attention, right? And that is honestly like probably more valuable than money, right? In the sense of what brands look for, right? In terms of like for consumers, right? It's like time is like literally the only thing in the world that you can't buy more of, no matter how much money you have. And so I think when somebody gives you their time, it means that they're very interested. And so that to me was something that I valued the most when I started figuring out the distribution and whether, I wanted to charge for the NFT or give the NFT for free. And that was really like a huge decision that kind of went into the process of it. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and I appreciate. I mean, full disclosure, I'm part of the Admit One community. I'm thrilled to be in it, and and you had mentioned this too. You were like, it's not up to me to set the market for what it means to be part of this community. I'm gonna let the community decide, and effectively the market decide, what it costs, if anything, to be in this community. And I think brands can learn from that, and cost being an interchangeable term with engagement, right? What do you have to do? How do you engage to be part of this community? And look, we're you know in the era of the influencer now, when we're in the era of the creator economy, right? And folks who are looking at the past and saying, wow, these people made, these few people made a ton of money in these walled garden platforms creating content, right? And now how do I even break into that? Is the bar too high? And I think Web3 just levels the playing field for everybody, right? If you can get out there and you can build a community and you're creative and you can monetize that creativity, whether it's through even just community building or art or technology or gaming, you've got that chance to now step in and really grow that base here in Web3, right? Instead of leaning on a platform or a walled garden to effectively like give you the keys or let you build that community. And I think, this has been kicked around more times than you can count, but it still applies, and it's still very much true today as it was over a year ago.
Right. Yeah, no, it's super exciting. And like it makes me super bullish to hear that the conversations that you're having on your end with the major brands are still happening, and especially the ones that are serious are taking this time to lean in as opposed to say, oh no, like we'll come back like next time, right? Because I think that to me is right now is the time that you should be investing into the space and building out for what will inevitably be a proliferation of this NFT tech. So, yeah, Keith, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate having you on, especially since we met so early on. I literally am famous for this avatar on Zoom calls, and it's all because of your work. And I know I've bugged you plenty of times with something like, "Yo, it's not working," and I have a podcast in 10 minutes and you figuring it out. So I really appreciate your help with that. So before I let you go, what's your favorite NFT?
What's my favorite NFT? Well, look, Beskar X, my identity, very much tied to my mutant ape, right? Merch hat, gold fur, striped shirt, which is like these locks and chains as a mutant. I love that. It's my identity, just like your CryptoPunk ape is your identity. But I also love the NFTs I've collected, from artists in the space, right? And people like the Ethereans, right? And they're building for a purpose and building for a reason. So I, you know me, I love the stories behind the NFTs. It's why I got into the space, right? And this is what we started doing from the very beginning, was telling stories around NFTs, because it goes way beyond the art and it goes way beyond the tech, and it really taps into the culture. So anything that has a lightning rod for culture like that, that's my favorite NFTs, and it's really all about the creators themselves, right? I'm a collector because of the creators.
All right, perfect. I mean, I love it. I definitely vibe with that sentiment. So thank you for sharing that. And, for those that are listening that want to find out more about you and all the cool stuff that you're working on, what's the best place for them to check?
Yeah, it's a couple places, right? I post a lot of what we do at Publicist Media on LinkedIn at Soljacich. I probably tweet the most from my crypto Twitter account, which is BeskRX NFT. And I know this episode's airing after NFT NYC, so you may have seen me and my friends CrytoNovo and Spotty Wi-Fi and JRR Token on stage on Tuesday at NFT NYC, where we actually revealed we doxed a couple days ago. So I'm totally comfortable now, merging my digital identity together with my real world identity, and yeah, I talk about brands, talk about the metaverse, talk about NFTs, and really just this whole Web3 space on all those platforms.
Awesome. Looking forward to all the stuff that you're doing in the space, helping onboard brands. And, I feel like our paths will probably cross at some point with regards to doing something cool and innovative together. So I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, looking forward to everything you're doing. And thanks for everybody that's tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.